That was a lot of work. If you guys didn't hear that, I'll retire today. I'll just quit. What is that noise? Somebody spraying something outside? Oh, man. That was a lot of work. The meningitis menace. Can't be doing that every day. I'm 30 now. What's up, everybody? Hopefully you saw the intro. If you did not, frick me. And we'll get on with life. What's up, everybody? Okay, so tonight I have an interesting topic for us. I am excited about this one. Okay, good. As long as you heard it, man. All that effort. That's all that matters. It's for you. It's a lot of dancing. Didn't know what I was going to do there. All right, so interesting topic today. Now, what's crazy is that this has actually been coming up a lot more lately. I've seen a lot of people on TikTok specifically talking about this, and it's your bathwater. It actually was water. If somebody was like spraying a hose or something against I don't know. Anyway, so I'm excited to talk about this because I think it's something that I've seen a lot. And you know what's interesting about this idea of gender roles is there's been different ideas of what let's call it the gender does based off of the time that you live in. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and say this because I've always had an opinion on this. I've never spoken about it. I think what's interesting about this idea is that back even in biblical times, I never understood why there was such a hierarchy of men over women. Now, I understand that like leadership and things are like qualities that a man can have to lead his wife. But being a ruler and being a leader are completely separate things. So I want to start there. I do not believe in a king over a queen situation there. And I'm going to get into why. And trust me, I've spent a lot of time thinking about this because just something in our society that I don't think we have a lot of, I don't know. I just don't see a lot of people talking about it outside of in a way of like controversy. And, people get really upset with this idea that they're supposed to conform to this role. So first, let's talk about gender roles in marriage. That's a different dynamic because each gender in marriage has a different role, but they're not equal and one is not better. Let's put it that way. So in my opinion, like depending on circumstances, either person could work, either person could take care of certain things, either person should be able to cook and things like that. I see, there's that whole like, I'm just going to say what I feel. I don't care. The fact that there's people who say that, women cook and clean and this and men work and do this, I just think is crazy, honestly, because that's not a relationship and where you always just do the 50-50. But I'm also going to say my counter argument to that is that it's what you agree on. That's the thing about this whole idea is that there's no one perfect way to do this. If the husband's the better chef and cook, why would it be wrong for him to do the cooking? Like, why would that be a gender assignment? Now, I think because we grew up in a world where I think there was a time where there was like this idea that people conform to this certain thing. What I'm going to do tonight is deconstruct what we see as a society and try to talk a little bit more about circumstantially. And I think we're going to talk a little bit more about how people need to stop trying to push people into a role based off what they think. Okay, so let's go back real quick. Working is not something that a man has to do over his woman. Like she can't work. My personal belief is this: as a man, and I'm just giving you my personal feelings, is that as a man, I want to provide, but at the same time, I would never say you can't go work. I don't want this. Like, I just want to be the one that puts the burden in that way on myself so you don't have to do that. But again, that's my own personal opinion. I think men put themselves in a position where they should work with what's going on inside of their relationship in their home. The other part of that is that a man is supposed to be a leader, but a man being a leader does not make him a ruler. And I say that because his whole idea biblically is to be submissive to God so that way he is able to get the best way of direction so he can direct his wife, not rule over her. Now what happens is people weaponize the Bible thinking that what it's saying is what's the word? We take these ideas from the Bible and we misunderstand the context. And that's why you're meeting Context Colby tonight, because I feel like we need to talk about the context of that. Submissiveness is not you being underneath or being forced to submit. Submissiveness is a position of heart. And a submissiveness would be, I trust in your leadership. And again, you even do this if you have a boss. Well, maybe you don't, but in that way, having a conversation and trusting in the leader of the company to do their role. Now, in that scenario, yes, there's a hierarchy, right? But I'm just giving you the part about the submissiveness. It's a choice to listen to your boss, trusting in their leadership. Now, not the whole part if they're above you. In a relationship, you are equals. Simple and plain. That is how it's supposed to be. When it comes down to this idea of gender roles, that you conform to this role, you get married, that needs to go back to the simplicity of the conversation of what you believe is right for your relationship and your marriage. And I see all these things about, like, a lot of women want to be called trad wives, which is traditional wives, which is the idea that she stays home and takes care of the home, is the homemaker, and makes the home a home. Because you know what? Let's be honest, men do not have the best skill set there, at least from what I've seen. I think that there are skill sets that each gender has, but that doesn't mean you can't step over in the role, right? But I don't think that a woman is supposed to stay home, cook, clean, and manage the home, because that's just not, I don't think God's purpose in our lives goes beyond all the things we set as society. So I think that that's what I always get frustrated with in those conversations, is that you're talking within the confines of the idea of what society says you should do versus how God sees you, right? I think, because I always think about my daughters, and I think how much I want my daughters to be empowered and understanding of the context. You've never heard that term? It's very, very popular. There's a movement, or whatever you want to call it, trend, whatever, but it's called trad, and it means traditional. And what that means is that basically, for me, like, the first thing that comes into mind is, like, I would say, like, in the 50s, 60s kind of idea. Because, like, every cliche movie starts out with, honey, I'm home. The husband comes in from work. The wife has cooked and cleaned and this and that. I just think that's crazy, because God has different roles for different people. And I always had a lot of questions growing up, because I'm like, there's these roles set where in the LDS church, it was more of a rulership over, in a sense. And I just was always confused. I'm like, God can do amazing things through anybody. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what gender you are. God can do something through you. And that's the thing. You remember, in the time when Jesus came out the tomb, it was two women who found the tomb empty, who in that time were not supposed to really have this role of bringing news, but they came busting in the door and said, his body isn't here. And in that time, that itself was not, like, acceptable. You see what I'm saying? So it's crazy, because it's all contextual to times, culture. There's different factors here. My personal belief is that you need to, as a father to daughters, I want to instill in them all the things of being a human being so they can make decisions for themselves. What I don't want my daughters to do is to think that they have to grow up and do something that is forced on them, right? I don't want them to think, okay, this is how society wants you to act, so you're going to just do that. My personal belief always has to come down to pray about your life and your role. My advice is always go to your Bible and then ask the questions in the Bible. What does that mean? What does that mean? What is God asking me to do? Now, here's my thing. I'm just going to say it the way that I see it too. I think if it's possible, and this is, again, this is the agreement. If you and your spouse, as a husband, and you and your spouse would want to have a, the mom, I want to be a mom for a certain amount of time, and your wife says, I want to be a mom and I want to stay home with the kids, then the agreement is that the husband's going to take over the financial part of the relationship. So that way there's a mother in the home for her children because that's the decision you two made. But it could go the other way. And you know what? I really don't like this idea that a dad can't stay home and be with his kids. And I know that this is going to sound crazy, but like I've thought a lot about this stuff. It's just crazy to think that a dad can't be a caretaker just as much. Like what was that? When did we stop having fathers who can step in, and we have this idea like, oh, that's not masculine, that's not this. A father could be home with his kids. How many single dads are there doing every role? And vice versa. How many single moms are there doing every single role? Do you see what I'm saying? So I feel like I just want to deconstruct this concept that we've created by society and set ourselves up to force people into ideology of how they should be and then argue about it, right? This is the thing that's so tough, and this is just the reality. The Bible itself can be hard to understand because you have to spend time with it. You have to really understand, and you have to really read it, and you have to really go through all those things. My personal belief that I grew up in, and I didn't have this example, but this is how I developed into my job that I want to provide is show up and be a safe place. Then I want to have a conversation and say, what do we need? Because I'm willing to go out and do what I need to do to be a provider. And I also want to be a protector. And then I want to teach my daughters how to know that they're loved, know their worth. And I want to teach my son how to be a man. And I honestly think being a man is helping him have confidence and helping a man feel that he has the ability to problem solve, and that my son can wake up and feel that he has inherent value, that he's loved. So his emotions are in check. He's not trying to be tough. He's not trying to prove himself all the time. But anything that he does comes from a place of a root of love. Like, I'm loved no matter what. That's it. My son needs to know that just as much as my daughters do. And that in itself will give the man the strength to do his part. Now, again, I do think that men are supposed to be the providers and the protectors. And that is just always how I will see it. And I will always do anything I can to protect my family. And so there's really just no other way around it. I think God gave us specific pieces that made us work together. The problem that we've had is that society has separated those two things and tried to scale them out and weigh them out to make them seem as if one is better than the other. I'm going to say this straight up. I can't imagine what it's like to be a mom and have to do all of those things. And you know what? Like, I'm not in those shoes, but what I do is not inherently better than what the mom would do, right? They're both important. And that's the sad part, is that we've spent so much time weighing and scaling out these roles, right? Who does what? It's really just between that marriage. And that's the husband and the wife. And then I think in a relationship, you have to have those conversations before you get to marriage. And I want to kind of say that one more time, because I grew up LDS, and I know that the goal is to get married, and to get married fast. The thing is, I think it's really, really important to take some time with someone. You can fall in love, right? You can, have the bouquet of flowers and plan your wedding and everything, but take some time to get to know how you feel about these things, right? Yeah, see, this is exactly right. It's the natural progression. I love that, Emily. But that's the thing. Women can provide and protect, and men can also be nurturing and soft and caring. So really, if we both have the capabilities of both, it doesn't confine us. But at the end of the day, it's about the balance, just like all of our life is. Again, like you said, there's just a natural built-in, let's call it whatever, iOS system, your setting system or whatever, that it comes that way. And you know, I grew up with technically a single mom for a long time until she married my dad, Charles. And I didn't have a good example at all with Tylee's dad. Just I didn't. He was I'm not going to get into all that because that's a story for a whole nother time, but he was not just disciplinary, he was an angry human being. And what he taught me to do was be afraid. And he hurt me emotionally, physically, and in other ways. And it really, really just made me more afraid of men. So I grew up more naturally safer around women. Like that was just my natural, I felt safe around women more than I did men. And I grew up watching my mom provide. That's one thing I can always give her, is that she put her shoulder down and she always provided. And then when she got married, she stopped working a couple years into the marriage. And again, she was doing hair and all that stuff all the way through a certain amount of time until finally they decided as a couple that she was going to be a stay-at-home mom with us. So again, the role is in the confines of what is required of the situation. Like I see dads braiding their daughter's hair. Is that not masculine? And we get into that big debate of like, what is all of these things, right? What is masculinity? What is femininity? Blah, blah, blah. The thing is, like, we kind of just already have our defaults of what we know what it is. But when it comes to these ideas of roles, like you're forced into doing this thing, I would never want to marry somebody and be a type of husband to say, because you're a woman, I want you to fit and do these things, and it's going to make you an unhappy partner to me, right? The thing about leaders, and I always tell you this is why Alpha Mate is all about wolves, right? The thing about leadership is that wolves, if you don't know, the alpha male of the pack is in the back of the line. He doesn't lead the pack from the front. He leads from the back, meaning he's the last line of defense and he watches everybody's back. That's a beautiful and strong thing, because a leader is someone who's in the trenches with you. A leader is somebody who goes and gets in with you and does not expect you to do something that they would not do. That's another big problem that we have, is like rule over is not meaning, somebody who is above, a step above. And I don't like that idea. And I think that that's the debate that people get into. And people, I think, get really upset because, yeah, that is frustrating. That's an upsetting thing to think that one person would have to be submissive to the point of unhappiness and hurt and anger and resentment because they're either the woman or the man. And there's that whole idea like, oh, well, if you're not being masculine, then I have to be more masculine. Or if you're not being feminine enough, blah, blah, blah. It's crazy because if your focus is the other person, number one, and then number two, if you've had the discussions that you should have, which is just the communication side, which is really hard in relationships. Everybody knows that. But having a conversation, I feel like is the most important thing. Because again, how in the world did we get to women just cook? Like what is that? I just don't get it. Like if I cook really good grilled cheeses and steaks and this and that, I'm going to cook. It's not a job for a woman. It's not a job for a man. Now, again, it's interesting because how do I put this? It's interesting to me because people get really upset, and I think we've stopped defining our terms of the conversation and the argument, right? We just stopped. We stopped, like, we don't even know what the starting line is, but we're just ready to jump in because people are so passionate about what they're talking about. But again, I'm going to read this real quick. Whoa, 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 whoa. I can reply to you? That was interesting. I was trying to read Tessa's message. That was me when I got married super young. I wish I would have known what I know now. I'm grateful for my son. Oh, sorry. You were replying to somebody. My bad. I don't know, man. It's just an interesting thing because I think about what I want my daughters to learn, and I think about what I want my son to learn, right? But that's two different roles to teach as a parent. I did not have a good example of either one of those things. I did not have a good example of what I feel like a father role is in your life. And then also, I did not have a good mother role. So those are both things that are foreign to me. And so my hope for my kids is as simple as this. I want my daughters to be just as capable as my son. I don't want my daughters. This is what I think is so. I'm gonna tangent real quick before I get to that point, and this is why I think it's important. Your dependency on your life should be on God. I need God. That is the only thing that I need. I need air, I need water, and I need food. But I want these other things, right? So there's a difference between needs and wants. And I bring that point up because I don't want my kids to be so dependent on someone else because I didn't teach them how to do these things. That's simple. I want my daughters to be just as capable as my son is at these things. And that is just teaching them. That's it. That's all I want. I want them to feel like they can lean on themselves if they have to, right? But the best part is if they find a good partner and they find a husband or he finds a wife, they can make it work in their relationship, but they're not dependent on the other person. You see what I'm saying? Dependency in a relationship is the first killer because now you've taken something that is supposed to be a choice, the best choice that you make, and you've made it a need. And it's so hard to get there because you're so in love and you have this relationship and you want to give it everything and you want to nurture it. But we create a bond of I need you to make it. And it's crazy because what happens if you lose it? What happens if it's gone? And you don't know how to stand on your feet and you don't know how to function outside of that. I feel like God wants us as any good parent would want is to help us feel capable. And that's the beautiful thing. And let's just to go back to the marriage part. That's the choice. That's the best part about it. You're choosing that. Your kids need you, but your spouse, it should be a want and a desire and something you work at. So I think that's how I've always viewed it. But again, back to the role part. If I'm teaching my kids, and who knows what it's going to be like when they get to the age of being in a relationship or even just being a person, where we'll be at. But I think it's really important to keep coming back to what is important and them being capable and feeling emotionally able to regulate themselves and to know how they feel, to identify their feelings. You know, I want my son to have the same skills, but I also want my daughters to be able to, if they have to, change a tire and do those things, right? The as you should thing is something we covered on one of our other shows. And it's like that whole idea of as you should, meaning men should do certain things, like men should pay men that. You guys know how I feel about first dates and stuff like that. But that's the whole point in those relationships is it's not a you do this, it's a I choose this. And when it comes to those roles, that's how it should always be viewed. Because once you take that away and you expect things because you're a woman, or you expect things because you're a man, I think you've kind of stripped the whole point of it. That's my personal opinion. You know? But I don't know. I mean, does unconventional love really exist for everybody? Do we really have that anymore? Or is it always conditional? Is it always, well, I love you because of what you do versus I love you because I love you. That's a whole nother conversation, maybe. But it's interesting because I want my daughters to know they can handle life. And I'm not trying to sit here and say, oh, they need to be these independent, they don't need a man. No, I want them to feel capable. I believe that God wants us to be happy, but not everybody gets married. That's not everybody's path. And you know what? It's between you and God. That's it. It's that simple. Of course, I'd love for them to be married and have kids, but honestly, that's between them and God when they become older. My job is to raise them and then be there for them and love them. That's my job. My job is to take care of them, but my privilege is to love them. And so I'm going to teach my daughters and my son a lot of the same things. The only thing that I want to help with each of them is to help them with what goes on with the difference between being a man and a woman, right? The struggles and the things that you'll face in your life. Those are just going to be different things, right? And that's where it's really important to have both sides. I think you need male and female influences because you don't have the perspective that everybody else has. And so it's really important to be able to see, and this is why it's so sad to think that there's all of these kids who don't have a mom or a dad or don't have both, and you don't get that influence in your life, because figuring stuff out for yourself is brutal. It just is. I think our job is to help make our kids capable. And that defeats the whole idea of the role, because the role itself goes down to the basics to me, which is just you choose what your role is. That's it. That's it. Like, you go to a company, you have some role. You get in a marriage and you have a different role. It's like I don't feel like there's some assigned thing, right? There's no, oh, well, we're married now, so you get to doing this and I get to doing this because that's how my dad and mom did it. It's like, no, you guys figure it out. Talk about it. There's no gender assignment to these tasks in the house. That's the part that I think I'll gripe about the most, is that there's nothing wrong with both of you taking care of your home, taking care of your kids. Like, when did that become a mom or a dad thing? I don't know, man. What are we doing? Dad should want to be present and have fun with their kids and love their kids and be soft with their kids, but also be the disciplinary sometimes, just like the mom could be a disciplinary. But again, that's where it starts to split out into what the dad does well and what the mom does well. But the role part is the confining piece, right? And there's nothing wrong. Again, I'm trying to say in a full circle way, if you want nothing more than to be a traditional wife, then you should, because that's what works for you, and that's what makes you happy, and that's what makes your family work. My biggest thing is you have to make the family work, the relationship work, and that is what happens. So I don't want to keep circling it on, but I keep seeing these arguments, and the as you should thing is what kind of set it off for me, because I kept seeing that thing like, as you should do this. Love to me is the choice. Like, I don't know, man. The choice to do something for someone else and it has no benefit to you. Like, there's just no benefit. That to me, and that action, right? Because there's different love languages. There's different ways to express love. But I feel like a lot of times what love is that you choose to keep showing up for that person, and it's not because of a circumstance, and it's not because of you have to or an obligation. It's because you love them. And sometimes you don't always want to do something, and yet you do it because you love them. Love is not an emotion. It's just not. Like, being in love is euphoric. Yeah, you feel great. You're not going to have euphoria for the rest of your life with one person. I think people in the modern day get divorced or break up or whatever, think the relationship's over because the euphoria is over. Yeah, it's not, you don't ride highs forever, And I think that that's what makes things beautiful. And I think, I don't know, it's just the more I think about it, I don't want my daughters growing up thinking this is what you're going to do. You're gonna be this way because you are a woman. I want my daughters to be powerful and strong and capable and bold and whatever God has created in them. I want to bring the best of them out. And I don't expect both daughters to even act the same because they're two different people. So even if I have these beliefs or whatever the case is, I still want them to flourish as that person. I want my daughter to be the best version of herself. And it's not a comparison between her and her sister. It's not a comparison with their brother because they're not the same, you know? I think that's the one thing I'll also say about parenting. I think it's really important to not put a one size fits all mentality on your kids. You just shouldn't do that. And what works for one kid won't all, it's like school. We kind of just throw kids in and expect them all to learn the same way. It just doesn't work like that. We're all different. And so when you do a parenting method where it's like, this is how we get down, I'm sure there's definitely boundaries there. And there's definitely like the confines. But you never know if this kid responds better to let's go have a conversation over here and just one-on-one, see how you're feeling. And one kid, really does well with another method. I don't know, just saying. But we do this thing where it's like, a lot of not we, but just in society, we kind of like throw everything into a one size fits all because it's easy. So it's just interesting. It's interesting to see that. I was going to share some articles with you, but it gets into other topics that I just feel are not important. And it starts to get into this whole thing about debating on like capability. It's just like, I don't understand that. We're not talking, I don't think that to me, it's like you're more capable of doing something. Like I just believe in the spirit of a person. I just believe God made who he made and that's it. It's just that simple, right? Like there's so many biblical strong women in the Bible who did things and there's so many historical examples of women doing amazing feats. And that's what I would want my daughters to know that they can do. It's I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. So it's not, and that's the thing, that quote is always misconstrued as I can do all things. Slow down. You can do all things through Christ who gives you strength. That's very different terms. That's very different. One is I can do it all, and one is God gives me strength so I can do all things. Very different, scenario there. But I want my daughters to feel that way just as much as I want my son to feel that way. And I don't want my son to grow up to think his job is to rule over his wife and dictate her. I want him to look at her with a sense of responsibility and say, I love her. And I want to figure out how to be the protector and the provider and be what I need to be for her based off of her needs. And that opens up a whole nother conversation to how we treat relationships, that is what's so hard about those roles is they define the relationship into failure. And a lot of times, like I said, you tell somebody, this is how you need to behave in this relationship and be like, I'm out. Get you on the flippity flop because it's a choice. I'm here by choice. Marriage, even by itself, is a choice. It's a bonding choice. It's a very important choice. In my opinion, marriage is your most important decision you make in your life because it dictates so many things past being in love and being euphoric, right? Because once you have kids together and you intermesh your life, it's a big deal. But I just always think I don't want my son thinking his job is to dominate over his wife. I want him to be a leading, loving, kind, soft, and also a protector. And yes, that can all exist. I think that if you look at how real, and this is the whole concept of real men, real women, blah, blah. I feel like a real man to me is way less warrior in like this fact of like banging your chest trying to start a fire versus somebody who's way more calm and confident like Jesus. and says things from their heart and has a presence of softness and sternness. There's a perfect mix there. You know what I mean? I want my son to feel that he is confident in himself and can love his wife the right way. That he doesn't have to prove that he's a man. And that's another thing. You know what? Frick it. We're going to talk about it because we're here. The role of being a man has changed a lot too. You know what I mean? And I hear that all the time. Like people call each other out of their gender. Well, you're not a man if you don't do this and you don't meet this criteria and this and that. Where's the list? I'd like to see it. I'd like to review it. Where's the list of what a man is? Tell me that. You have a biblical example, but nobody's going to be perfect. Everyone is going to have struggles and doubts. And I think that, man, I want my son, man. I want him to, I don't know why I'm going to cry. I guess I've never thought about it like this. I guess for me, my whole life, I never felt like I had that ability to go to a dad or a man and talk about this stuff. So, I want my son to, I just want him to be understanding of him. I don't want him questioning if he is a man or that something can take away a part of who he is and make him feel like he is not this because he's not where he needs to be in some way. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want my son to have to prove himself his whole life just so he can feel accepted, you know? And that's how I feel like our society is. Like, men feel like they have to prove it. I got to prove it. I got to prove that I'm good enough. I got to prove that I'm strong enough. I got to prove everything in it, earn it. And there's nothing wrong inherently with any of those things. But what I think is wrong is to in place of that, for him to not feel loved, that he has to do those things. He has to get in the mud and prove all these things to be a man. It's crazy. Right? If I could give a blueprint to any man who wants to try to be a man, it would be being calm and sturdy and loving and safe and protective, but understanding and patient and kind. And then, I mean, everything comes out of that. Everything comes out of that. And a relationship can change because you're confident yourself. But guess what? I want my daughters to feel the same freaking way. I want my daughters to know that they're loved. They don't have to prove their love in their marriage. They don't have to perform. So that way their husbands love them or earn their love in transactions. And it's effed up because our life is, we're in a transactional world. You transaction everything you do every time. Your time is the thing that the world eats. Even if you're not paying for something, you're giving your time. And I just feel like that is in our heads. And so I think that the last thing I'd want is for my daughters to be doing the same thing, trying to prove themselves that they're real women, because this is how we've said this is what women do. Women are this and women are that. I believe if I could also formulate the mom I wish I had, it would have been, I don't know why I'm crying tonight. Frick this, bro. I just wish I would have had a mom that was calm. Like, calmness is such a craving in this world. And if you could have someone you could go to and a mom and that softness, you know, because I feel like naturally fathers give you kind of that other side of that, but we'll finish with the mom. But if you could have that softness and there's an approachability in that unconditional love feeling and the ability to come with your feelings and talk about that stuff, that for a boy to a mom will help him be a man because now he's secure. And then vice versa, dads are so important to their daughters for the same reason because we can't give that. I can't give my daughters, what their mom can. I just can't because that's the part that is different and separate. But that doesn't make me inherently more valuable. It just makes it that this is what I provide. And it's kind of like anything else. It's like we're not going to sit here and try to compare apples and oranges, right? They're both fruit. They're just different. That doesn't mean one's better. Don't start a debate in the comments here. But I would want to go to my mom and feel that I'm safe emotionally. And I'd want to feel accepted and loved and told that it's okay and just have some stability from her. And I would want, I don't know, safety. And I think that men crave that from their moms and then they crave it from their spouse. And I wonder, I don't know what our women feel, but I know for me, and I can probably speak for a lot of men, is just the craving is that feeling of like not just love because men are soft, bro. They are. They can lie all day. They want to snuggle. Okay. They want to just feel like loved, like a puppy. Like that's what I would compare men to. Men are like puppies, bro. And they want love, but they act tough. I think that I see a lot though. I see a lot of women doing that too. Last thing I'd want though is for any man or woman, any person to be in their relationships playing a role. This is not Hollywood. You're not supposed to be out here acting. You're not supposed to be playing your part. That's BS. That's not genuine, right? What kind of crap is that? You gotta act every day in a role. You gotta play a role and do things because that's the expectation of the spouse. So I have to earn my spouse's approval or I just don't want to upset them or whatever reasoning. You're now playing a part. You're no longer in a relationship anymore. You are now in a place of performance. And so therefore it is transactional love. And it's sad because it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be a transaction. And I think men specifically struggle with that as well because men want to feel so loved so badly. And if you ask any man, I guarantee you, if you ask any man if he feels alone, he'll say yes. He will. Because men just struggle with that in general. Right. And then they try to play it tough, like, okay, well, tomorrow's coming regardless. So I got to get up and I got to do it. I got to perform. I have to keep moving. But women do it too. I know that. It's just different, right? Like that's the thing. It's just different ways that we move. The most like crazy thing, if you think about it, is Adam and Eve, right? They're put together in the garden, and I don't know if it was different because I know the fall's a big difference after, but they're together, like they're just, you know what I mean? And that's how it should be, right? If a man's wife's trying to hold him up, he's gonna freaking soar, and he's gonna want to work harder to make his wife feel the same way and give her what she's needing. But the last thing I'll say about roles is simply this: roles are a relationship killer, in my opinion. And I think my personal opinion is that roles should be talked about and in your relationship and in whatever role you're in, you accept it, right? I'll tell you what, I don't like doing dishes, but I do them, right? I mean, you do what you have to. You do whatever needs to be done. It has nothing to do with gender. It doesn't. Doing housework is not a gender thing. It just to me, it's never had an assignment like that. It's just, it's life. And whatever needs to be done, regardless. And I just want to give a huge shout out to all the single moms and dads because playing both roles has to be hard. And, you know, you can only do what you can. You can only do what you can. But I want to end this by saying, outside of all the role stuff, taking care of yourself is very important. You got to take care of your mental health. You have to, man, you just have to know how important you are and you have to take care of yourself because you can't perform at anything without taking care of yourself. Athletes take care of themselves, right? They go get deep tissue massage and everything, and they take care of themselves so that way they can perform. In a sense, we do have to perform because just sometimes we just have to show up. Doesn't mean it has to be perfect, but the performance simply just is the showing up part and the cleaning, call the performance. But I'm not a big fan. But also, I'm weird because cleaning for me can be really therapeutic. I guess just the feeling of it being over is the therapeutic part. I don't know. But I do think this. Let's talk about this. So this is really a great point. When I mean what I mean, and what I've always interpreted the head of the family as a husband, I always saw it that way. Is if the husband is going to God first, then coming back and taking care of his family, it's the leadership. The head of that does not mean dictation. Just shouldn't be that way. I've seen that. Like there's so many examples of families pleasing the father or the mother, right? And that's just its own kind of hell. Like you walk on eggshells all the time. You're not authentically yourself because you're trying to not piss someone off. You're not trying to upset somebody. I think that it really just it's each person. Like life simply is one thing. Each person has to start taking care of themselves, and then the other things come about. That's it. That's as simple as I can possibly make it. That's what I've learned in life. Because if you take care of yourself and you learn what your part is and you've talked to your spouse and you figured out this is what I'm going to do and this is where I can shine and this is where I can provide value and this is how I can show you love and I'm willing to show up, your kids will be happy and everything will be as good as it can be. Nothing's perfect. It's not going to be Disneyland every day. We all know that. But that's how life is. It's just showing up. That's the first part of it. That's why people who talk about going to the gym talk about showing up. Just showing up, just going to the gym, you win. You won a prize for the day because you did something that most people won't even do. Showing up for yourself, though, means taking care of yourself. And for sometimes when you have to play all those roles, you're exhausted. You got to show up for yourself. You got to take care of your health. You got to take care of you because you matter. And there's nothing I want more in this world for my kids to pass down the goodness of love. I want them to teach their kids the same things. But that doesn't work if I'm not showing up for me at all, right? I'm not putting on my oxygen mask first so that way I can give them the love as an example because I can tell them all day. I can teach them. I can show them YouTube videos. I can do whatever I want to make them hear these words. But if I don't show them kind, loving, patience, all those things, they're not going to really know what it is. Man, I'm going to say one more thing that's so crazy. I don't think a lot of us have experienced what real love is. But when you do, I feel like God's love, it surpasses what we understand because it goes past the boundaries of us providing some kind of service. And it's almost so hard to accept to the point where we're like, there's no way. Like, how can you love me? Like, I didn't do anything. At least that's how I've always felt. It's like, well, I didn't. perform or I didn't do something that like earned that position. I can't just take that love. I can't just accept that. You love me because I'm sitting here. You love me because I got a mustache. Like why do you love me? What do I have to put up for it? What do I have to what's the transaction here? I'm just waiting to hear that. And I think a lot of times a lot of people feel that way though, because it's like it's hard to understand that love surpasses conditional things. But we are human beings, so we are pretty conditional. It's just embedded in us, right? But real love, it goes past what you do for me. It's not transactional. So I think if you feel that way and you can find that understanding and find that type of love, and then you can share that love in a relationship, man, you're winning at life. Forget winning the lottery. That's life right there. Because I promise you, every person who's got that money, all they've got to not do is worry about like bills and stuff, which would be nice. Like you don't have to think about those kind of things. Maybe you can go get you a little house and do whatever, but it doesn't fulfill you because God is love. So therefore we crave that love. And then he's like, hey, why don't you come to me and get some love? And you're like, no, I'd rather watch The Office because it makes me laugh and I can hear the voices. It's tangible. And, so it just turns into things like that. But again, playing these roles in life, I just want to end on this. Playing roles in life, at some point, you're either going to be exhausted or going to feel like you wasted your life. And I don't want you to feel that way. I just don't. I don't want you to feel that you played something so you could get a little bit, right? You worked your butt off to get crumbs. And they weren't satisfying, but they were just enough to keep you going. That's not how God wants you to live your life. Abundance is more than money. Abundance is so many different things, but it just means more than you need. And sometimes he's not talking about money. Because again, if you get rich and then you meet someone and they know you've got like $300 million, do they love you or do they love the opportunity that you provide? Do they love your house and your pool and your jacuzzi, or do they like you? That's serious. Like, how would you know? And that's the thing. Money in itself is not evil. It's not. It's the love of money. It's the I would take a life for money. I would do this for money because money just rules our world. It's crazy. Crazy. I'm going off tonight. I did a big intro. I'm going crazy. My triceps are sore for no reason. I got a mustache. Life is weird, man. Interesting. But I see these trends, and the thing about like social media is crazy that in social media, we're just seeing something pick up speed, and we see this perspective, and it kind of starts to get in your brain, and it makes you think. But if you see that same opinion a lot, it gets in your head. So you gotta be really careful. You gotta see how you feel and think about things. You gotta take a big step back a lot of times. And I think that our world, sometimes our social media is set to get you riled up, because people who are riled up do things because they're upset. So I think that we gotta be really careful when it comes to how we perceive the world, and man, find some peace. It will start to change your perspective, your outlook, and the world won't dictate you. And that's what it means to be in the world, but not of the world. That is what it means. I never understood that concept until I started realizing that if I go and have peace and I get to know myself and I get to know God and I get to understand things and I just zoom out, then I can be in the world, but not of it. And being of it is following the trends. And guess what? The world is against you. Social media is against you. And you know what? Life is against you, and so is Satan. So yeah, you have a lot of opposition. But God's bigger than all that. So you don't have to do it by yourself. And you got community, and you got people that love you, that are even right here. Even if you don't have a tangible person in your life, you got a community here. We ride or die out here. That's how we do. That's how we do it. We ride or die, baby. So I hope you're used to me talking because I'm gonna be out here. I'm gonna be out here. But dang, I didn't know we ran so long. I got 2% on my phone. So funny. It's like my phone doesn't ever want to die as fast as when we know we're doing the show. It knows that I'm doing the show, so it just extra dies. And then I gotta try to plug it in. Not today, Satan. I love that. Yeah, we don't play that crap. We'll put Satan in a box in Antarctica, fold him in a taco, frick him, boot that boy quicker than a hurry. I really do hope that these conversations help us as a community, because these are things that I just don't know why our world is like, why are we living life the way we live? But it's just like we've now transactioned to only entertainment. There's nothing wrong with entertainment, but that's all the world wants to feed you is just entertainment. And that is like, you know, people feel alone right now. That's the reality. That's the reality. You know, people don't know that the thoughts and the things that we discuss are out there because they think that on social media and everything, everybody's happy and perfect and in a perfect relationship and in a perfect job and doesn't ever get a zit on their forehead and blah, 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 and has everything going on for them. Like we're creating a loneliness. We're creating a generation that thinks that stuff is a certain way. Taco Tuesday, Satan tacos. Oh man, our Satan toss. Yes, there's a place called Torchy's. I told you guys they got a whole demon theme going on. I'm not a fan of that, but I will tell you those freaking tacos are fire. I might go over there and tell them to put up some Satan tacos, and then play the clip for them. Those will go crazy. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard in my life. I the reason why that was so funny is because it's that outlandish. That woman told other humans, other adults, that she folded Satan like a taco and put him in a box and then sent him to Antarctica. Have any of you seen Fantastic Four, the first one? The one that came out with Captain America? I don't know any of those actors' names besides Jessica Alba. There's that first one, and the first thing they do, spoiler alert, this came out in like early 2000s, they freeze Doctor Doom and put him in a box and put him in Antarctica. They send him out. About the same thing. I don't think anybody can do that. But not my place to say. Not my place to say. Whatever. Oh man. Chris Evans, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he was a better Captain America than he was a flame on. Fantastic Four is really old, man. People don't know their comic history. Fantastic Four, that was in that era when they were just putting their toes into superheroes. They didn't know what they were doing. Craziness. Yeah, I was actually just having a conversation about this today. I'll end the show on this, I promise. I was having a conversation today, and I'm thinking to myself about just like all the things I've learned and all the things that I heard, like the conversations that these adults in my family were having. And I think to myself, there's some serious mental illness there. But at the end of the day, too, it's also choices. So like it's kind of a mixture because it's like choosing to believe things. But the stuff they're saying is ludicrous. I mean, it's just so far off base. It's so made up. And I think that's where you need a base. Like if everything's made up, I'm just going to say it like this. If everything is just up for grabs and there's no boundaries, we would just float and never know anything. We would have no morality and we'd have no idea of good and bad because there's just no boundaries. So if we take away boundaries in life, what is the walls, right? Like what do we have if we have zero boundaries or zero concept of those things? So I think it's really important to acknowledge that, because that's what they did. They just took off all the confines of their own religion and added in whatever decided that day sounded better. And man, some of that stuff is it's so crazy that it's just funny. It's just funny. It's just too stupid to exist. No, I don't even think there's kids in 6th grade that talk like that. Like I was in 6th grade, I was that kid that's like, and then he falls off the wall and then he turns around and backflips and he does. It's like I was that kid, right? Well, what if he every 6th grader does that? Well, what if he fell off of the wall and you gave a whole scenario? That's them every day. Well, why don't we change? Why don't we change the religion? Let's change what I said. I told you this is your first time on earth. I told you that, but I'm just gonna let you know that it's actually like your fifth. And you know, and these other lives you had, you went through this and this, and he made it up that morning in the shower. And he was doing the ghost clay in the shower. I can't, bro. I'm gonna have to end this stream before I go on a tangent. This dude texting her that she was in the shower. She's not in the shower. You made it up. You're come on. Come on, bro. There's nobody there. You don't have a teleport. You can't do that. And if you can, you don't have that power, I promise. Anyway, I gotta go. I love you guys. Appreciate you. Thank you for being here for the show. We'll be back later this week, have some other concepts. I did see your chat, by the way, so I'm sorry. We will get to that. For the call-in part, what I'm going to probably start doing, because it's so hard to get people to click those links, I'm going to start sending it to our Discord for people to join in Discord. Okay. And it's not to be exclusive in that way only, but when I send it to our chat, everybody gets the same link at the same time. So it doesn't let anybody go in. So I promise you on the call-ins, I will get better about that. I might even go back to Zoom depending on what works. And maybe I can bring in more of you guys on Zoom and send like a mass link and let everybody come in. But when it comes to this software, it's like everybody's competing for the same exact spot. So we'll figure it out. I love you guys, man. Appreciate you guys being so amazing and being part of a bigger conversation. I love that. Anyway, love you guys. I will see you guys later this week. And man, just stay blessed, be grateful. And yeah, man. Love you.